You want to talk about robotics?
I do. Do you?
You're buying some, aren't you?
We are. So this is actually an exciting year for Level Green because we are actually taking delivery on 4 to 6 mowers from Electric Sheep. So we're partnered with Scythe. We've been working with them for 3 or 4 years now. We're working with Electric Sheep. We have Husqvarna, the little Roomba mowers deployed on some of our sites. So we're definitely all in on robotics. We understand the benefits that it's going to bring in the future.
People who are in the commercial space, for them, the smaller robots should not ideally be even considered, right? Like just bigger. I mean, so why did you try out like the smaller one?
So I would say that with commercial companies, you need to really identify the proper place to put a Roomba type mower. That just because you're a commercial landscaper doesn't mean that these mowers don't have any benefit to you. We have deployed them in 2 different places. One, we've deployed inside a gated area so that our teams don't have to go into that gated area and mow. It just stays mowed down. So we just need to send one person through this gated area every week to do the touch-up details. But really the benefit, I think, to the Roomba mowers for commercial maintenance companies is on athletic fields. And that's where we deployed the second one, to a Bermuda sports field, because what it does is it gives that consistent cut look every single day for the client. And so they don't have to worry about us coming out, especially with the Bermuda field needs to be mowed 2, 3, 4 times a week. And that's a lot of labor that we have to send out just for one field. So it helps us that we don't have to send it out, and it helps the client that they get that consistent look every single day of the week. And because you can schedule them to mow at night, you can schedule them to mow during the day while there's no practice or games going on. And the company that is managing those, let's say it's a rain day and there's a makeup on a Sunday, and you typically have your mower set up to mow on Sunday. Well, right from an app on your phone, you can stop that mower from going out, so no one has to go out and stop it, and you still have that consistent look. So whether it rains or not, those mowers can cut.
That thing works on cellular. You don't have to be close to the robot to send.
That is correct. So each one of those robots now has a 4G or 4G LTE data box in it, so that it can communicate wirelessly, and it does not require you to connect it to your client's Wi-Fi network, which may cause issues for security for your client or connectivity issues if your client decides to move an access point and then all of a sudden your mowers stop communicating.
Yeah, man. Talk about consistent cut. How big of a field is it, and how long does it take for the robot to like take care of all of it?
So when we're talking about these Roomba mowers, there's lots of different sizes, and honestly, they're starting to get bigger and bigger. So a year ago, they could really only manage to mow about 1.5 acres. Now that's at least doubled, sometimes tripled, depending on the size of the mower. But there's still a lot of drawbacks to this. That when you think about 1 acre, when we say that a robotic mower can handle mowing 1 acre, we're pretty much talking about a square or a slightly oblong rectangle. When you think, oh, well, I have this acre that I want to mow, it's about 20 feet wide, and the rest of it just runs straight back. Well, the problem is the wire that needs to get laid starts to lose its electrical signal the further away from the charging station that it goes. So if your acre property just runs straight back, you're not going to be able to wire that entire piece because the electrical charge runs out. So you really have to think about, well, what is the shape of this, not just how big it is.
Wow. Oh, so when you talk about that long acre field, how like is it long enough?
So a football field is fine, but if you take, I don't know, we'd have to do the math on what is 20 feet wide by how many thousands of feet long to get to an acre.
Yeah.
That's really the challenge. So the size of a football field, that
Yeah.
is something that a mower could easily handle and easily keep up with. And if you're concerned about the consistency of the cut, you can do what's called swarm mode, where you get two or more mowers working together. And that's how we set up this field. So we have two mowers. They understand where they're mowing, even though the mow patterns for this type of mower is randomized, which is important because you won't have striping in your turf. But these mowers can then understand where each one of them is mowing, so they can go out and attack the field as two mowers rather than one. That way, if your mow time is cut in half for some reason, let's say you can only mow overnight and you can't mow during the day, then you can still ensure that consistent quality each time, because the mowers go out, they mow for 2 or 3 hours, then they come back and charge for 2 or 3 hours and go out and mow again. So in a 12-hour time period, you're probably only mowing half of that time.
Understood. What sort of a field is it where you're deploying this?
So this is a soccer field. It's a Bermuda turf soccer field, and we're in the northern climate region. So Bermuda technically shouldn't exist here, but it has started to creep its way up from the south ever faster. And so we have it, and it grows vigorously in the summertime because our climate supports that. It just goes dormant very early and takes a long time before it becomes reactivated in the spring.
How much labor are you saving on that property?
A lot. So the thing is, we used to send an operations manager out there to mow it. We had a specialized reel machine that has a reel and bed knife blade system on it, because that is better suited for mowing at very small heights. I guess that's the other thing that I didn't mention with this Bermuda grass. We're mowing it at like 1/2 inch, whereas typical turf is mowed at 3.5 to 4 inches in our region. So we're mowing this turf very tight, and these Roomba mowers allow for a really good cut at that level because it's just razor blades spinning around basically. So the amount of time that we saved is significant, because we used to have send an operations manager out. There was a specialized, expensive mower just for that property. Then we had travel time, both directions, plus the hour it took to mow the field, get the machine out, put the machine away, clean the machine off, all that type of stuff. So you're an hour and a half plus travel time, 2.5 hours times 3 days a week. So we're saving almost an entire day's worth of labor from an operations manager just by putting these machines out there. So in that case, it paid for itself in the first year.
Why did you have to send an operations manager out there? I mean, it's not related. Why?
Yeah, because it was such a frequent operation that needed to happen, we didn't want to pull a crew away from their normal service job. So the ops manager would go mow this field on the way to doing something else. But still, that's an hour, 2 hours worth of time that could have been better spent training the crews, working with the crews, that type of thing.
How many years have you had that deployed?
This will be the second year for that deployment.
What happens in the winter? Does it like stay around?
Great question. So in the winter, we pick up the robots and bring them back to the shop. The stations, the charging stations, can stay out there. They're weatherproof. It's fine for them to stay out there. But we don't want the robots growing legs and walking away themselves in the winter time. So we pull them back in, do a little bit of maintenance, change the blade, which is the only thing that needs to happen, and then put them back out. They're actually already out mowing on the gated places this year. Even though it's early, it's just keeping that consistent cut so we don't have to worry about it.
How does the property manager take this? Like, you used to do it manually, now you have robots. Do they like it?
Yeah, so to be honest, it was a little bit difficult at first to convince the property manager that this was the way to go, just because they didn't necessarily believe it was going to give them a consistent cut. Some of the other challenges that we had is because it's an athletic field, we had challenges with the mowers getting caught up in the nets. But we did some tightening of the nets and just went out there and watched what was happening, and we were able to correct that. To be honest, the very first time that we put them out there, what we should have done was mowed the field first and then put the mowers out. We didn't do that, and so there were seed heads on the Bermuda grass that were a couple inches long. And so when the mowers went out and mowed, because they have razor blades on them, it cut that grass and laid it straight over. So when the property manager looked out the window, it looked like crop circles. And they were like, oh my goodness, it's ruining the field, and like, we can't do this anymore. And I said, no, that's just clippings. We sent somebody out there to blow the entire field off, and ever since then it was fine. So it's those little learning curve things that I think is why we are excited to be getting into robotics now, because we're learning about those things now, so that as it becomes more mainstream and more people catch on, we're well ahead of the learning curve.
Very cool. Just to wrap up this topic on residential mowers, what sort of data points do you actually get from that robot in the field? Like anything that you can use further?
So with the Husqvarnas, it is somewhat minimal in terms of how much data that we're getting. So you get the normal, how long did it mow? How long did it spend searching for its base station? So because it is random, it does take some time to find its way back. So it gives you some breakdowns of things like that, but it doesn't tie into, the temperature, the type of soil, the overall health of the turf. Nothing like that is coming from these machines, yet there are just very remedial hour meters basically that are on them.
That's it, folks. Thank you so much for listening in. We will see you next time. Have a good one.